The discussion continues in the Roman Catholic Church over whether to deny President Biden, the nation's second Catholic president, from receiving Holy Communion because of his public policy support of abortion. Now, even House Democrats speaking out, calling the decision a weaponization of the Eucharist. Joining us to discuss, Bill Donohue, president of the Catholic League. Our panelists, Melanie Burkholder and Ted Harvey, are here as well. Good to see everyone today. The Roman Catholic bishops of the United States have advanced their plan to refuse communion to the president. No formal decision, however, has been reached. Meanwhile, other Democrat leaders, 60 of them, responding with the following statement, writing, quote, "The sacrament of Holy Communion is central to the life of practicing Catholics, and the weaponization of the Eucharist to Democratic lawmakers for their support of a woman's safe and legal access to abortion is contradictory." Bill, I'll go to you. When it comes to church doctrine, and I know you know it well, how is the Holy Eucharist viewed, and why might President Biden be denied communion as someone who's described as a practicing Catholic?
Right. Well, we're not so much interested whether or not he carries around his rosaries, okay? That's just pure symbolism. The Eucharist, or Holy Communion, is the real presence of Jesus Christ. That's what we believe as Catholics. It's a very serious statement of one's professional belief in Catholicism. You're supposed to be in a state of grace. That doesn't mean you can't have communion if you're a sinner. We're all sinners. We're talking about grave, serious moral sins, such as, for example, supporting or procuring or advocating an abortion, which is obviously the killing of an innocent unborn child. So that's where this whole thing comes about. The people who signed this letter, led by Rosa DeLauro, every one of them are abortion enthusiasts. They even say that partial birth abortion should be legalized, even though 80% of the child is already born. And of course, they say that they're in favor of other things with the Catholic Church. They want free access to education. Yet every one of them, 59 of these people, say that we should be against school choice. By the way, let me add one thing. I'm going to address something today because now it's become more serious. There's a California Democrat, Jared Huffman, who now tweets out that maybe we should take away the tax-exempt status of the Catholic Church. A guy like him belongs in Iran or North Korea, not in the United States of America.
You mentioned the next point. I want to show our viewers what you're talking about. Again, this tweet from Democrat Congressman Jared Huffman saying if they're going to politically weaponize religion by rebuking Democrats who support women's reproductive choice, then a rebuke of their tax-exempt status may be in order. Ted Harvey, I'll go to you. Your thoughts on, again, what's being at least thought about from this one Democrat?
Well, I'm not Catholic, but I can certainly tell you as a pro-life activist, there has been no organization in this country that has done more work for the pro-life movement in this country than the Catholic Church. They are to be held up as heroes for fighting for the unborn. But for the Democrats to say that fighting for the unborn is a political position, and therefore anybody who is pro-life and has a religious organization should have their tax-exempt status pulled, that tells you how radical the Democrats are. And it's not surprising when the state of New York legalized late-term abortion and then lit up the Empire State Building in red, white, and blue to celebrate the fact that they can murder kids after birth. That should scare everybody in this country, but that's where the Democrat Party is right now, and they're not joking. They will try to take away the tax-exempt status of the Catholic Church for standing up for life.
And although the President Biden says, you know, he doesn't support abortion on a personal note, again, his policies would align with the pro-choice movement here. Reporters are asking questions specifically of Jen Psaki, the press secretary, about when he defines life in the womb. Here's how she responded. Take a look.
Does the president believe that a 15-week-old unborn baby is a human being?
Are you asking me if the president supports a woman's right to choose? He does.
She did not answer the question there. I think we can all agree on that. But Melanie, what do you make of this remark and then of the overall situation, this debate as to whether or not Joe Biden should be receiving, again, the privilege of receiving the communion and not the right to do so?
Look, Emma, maybe she'll circle back on that one. I don't know. We never know what Jen Psaki's going to do. But I'll say this. On a personal note, as someone that worked for Catholic Charities providing in counseling for people that were having issues with their teenage children, truancy, neglect, bad grades, they were running away, they got caught for all different sorts of things in a lockup facility. This negates separating this and saying that, the Catholic Charities doesn't need to be, the Catholic Church doesn't need to be a nonprofit status anymore, negates all of the good work that they do for people, parenting skills, providing group counseling, individual counseling. Everything that this stands for is saying that we're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and that's a horrible thing to say. And that's exactly what they're doing. So we need to push back on this. This one radical Democrat in California is just like all of the other radical Democrats in California. They try to one up the next one and figure out what is the next worst thing they can do to separate us from our God. And for me, I'm not Catholic either, I'm Lutheran, but there is no way that any politics or policy will separate me from my faith. And I think people need to get to the base of this argument and understand that by Jen Psaki not answering the question, it tells the answer that we have.
Really quick for you, Bill. Do you think Pope Francis will weigh in on this debate? Do you think President Biden will be denied the Eucharist from certain priests?
I don't think Pope Francis is going to weigh in any major public way. He may say some things behind closed doors, so to speak. He wants unity. Right now, we do have some disunity. But the truth matters in the end. What's going to happen is the bishops will put out a very good statement in November. But look, at the same time, I don't see any dramatic change. I think you're going to see communion shopping on the part of these self-identified Catholics. They consider themselves Catholics. Self-identified Catholic Democrats who have never found an abortion they could not justify. So they'll find some priest who will accede to their request. But they have to be very careful about where they go, because I know a lot of priests who say, listen, if you want to be like this guy, Ted Lieu, come out there and said, I dare you. I know a lot of priests who would say, come right forward, buddy, and we'll take care of you.
Yeah, we'll keep watching. Hey, you're supposed to technically be fasting at least an hour before the Eucharist anyway. Not sure if everyone follows that rule, but it is in there. Bill Donohue, thank you for joining us. Hi, Emma Reckenberg here. If you like this video, there's a whole lot more to see on Newsmax TV. You can watch for free right here on our YouTube live stream and be the first one here each time our experts break down real news. Just hit that subscribe button, ring the bell icon, and stay with us on America's fastest growing cable news channel, Newsmax TV.